بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, if you remember last class we said that Halima, the wet nurse of the Prophet ﷺ, returned him to his mom when he was 4 years of age after encountering the Archangel Jibreel, splitting his chest in an operation, taking his heart, washing it in Zamzam water and returning it, extracting whatever shaitan would have utilized from that heart. So now his heart is purified and shaitan had no way to do anything evil with the Prophet ﷺ. And this incident happened twice in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. Once when he was 4 years of age, and the second time before the miraculous night journey, as we will come and discuss later on, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal. The Prophet stayed with his mom for 2 years, from 4 till 6. And when he was 6 years of age, Amina wanted to visit her maternal uncles and aunts who lived in Medina. So she took her son and traveled all the way to Medina and stayed there for about a month. As we know, at the time, it was a known fact that whoever went to Medina would encounter a strange illness and a fever that would cause a great deal of hardship to people. And sometimes it may be fatal to others, which unfortunately was the case with the Prophet's mother alayhi salatu wasalam. After her month's stay, she felt a bit sick. So she went back with her son to Mecca. The distance between Mecca and Medina is about 500 kilometers, give or take. And by train, it's about a couple of hours and few minutes. By car, it's almost 5 to 6 hours. By camel, it may take a good 3 days trip. So it was a hard trip. And if one was sick and having fever, that is even worse. Unfortunately, her health deteriorated on the way, and in Al-Abwa, which is an area between Mecca and Medina, she died and was buried there. So this young child, 6 years of age, was taken back to his grandfather in Mecca. And his grandfather had a strange attachment. Though he had many children and grandchildren, yet no one caught his attention, his empathy, his mercy, his love more than Muhammad. So this child would do things no one else could dare to do. He would sit on his grandfather's chair, and his uncles would try to bring him down, but his grandfather would say, leave him. This son of mine will have a huge and bright future, because he could see it in his face. And we can see this in our children sometimes, that this child is going to be something, and this child is going to be a bum. Unfortunately, this happens. But with the Prophet ﷺ, it was pretty obvious. He loved him a lot, and he favored his own grandson more than any of his own sons. This love that he showered the Prophet with, unfortunately, lasted only for 2 years. Just as the Prophet was 80 years of age, another catastrophe. His grandfather dies. But before he died, he gave Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to his uncle Abu Talib. And he told Abu Talib to take good care of his nephew. So Abu Talib took him in and he protected him. He sheltered him. He cared for him. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ, being brought up in his uncle's house, was not rich. And neither was his uncle, who had many children. So at some part of the time, or some point of time, the Prophet had to work. And he worked, as he told us, as a shepherd for some families. And he worked in trade, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, just to make ends meet. When the Prophet ﷺ was a teenager, like 13, 14 years of age, his uncle took him on a trade journey to Syria. And this was the norm in Arabia. Trade came from Yemen to Mecca and from Syria to Mecca. And it was a hub because people from all over the world came for pilgrimage to the Kaaba. So they would, at the same time of their religious journey, trade and buy things and sell things in this season that takes place every year. So in one of these caravans, Abu Talib took his nephew with him and went to Syria. In the books of Sirah, this is affirmative and certain that the Prophet went to Syria. What comes next is debatable, where there is no authentic hadith of the monk Bahira encountering the Prophet ﷺ. And the story goes that he was met by the monk Bahira, who was in his monastery, never ever to come down and meet such caravans. That caravan, he came down, which was shocking to them. And he started to look at each and every one of them until he stopped at the Prophet ﷺ. And he said that this is the leader of the worlds. This is the messenger of the word of Allah Azza wa Jal to the worlds. And Allah will send him as a mercy to the worlds. All of this is not authentic. And there is not an authentic hadith. And when they ask him, how did you know? He said that I have seen that every tree and every piece of rock or stone were prostrating and greeting him, and they don't do this except for prophets. How would you know this? Did you live to see prophets before him? And this thing is being done to him? So these stories we do not accept and take to be true, and we just read them because the books of Sirah included them. Now, he recognized the Prophet ﷺ by what we know that the Prophet had, which is the seal of the prophethood, which was something between the shoulder blades of the Prophet ﷺ at his back, like the egg of a dove or a small apple. And this is a sign of prophethood that the Prophet was known to have, and it was his description in previous scriptures. And Bahira, the monk, ordered Abu Talib not to go all the way to Syria, because if the Jews were to know and hear of him, they would kill him. So he ordered Abu Talib to send him back to Mecca, and so did Abu Talib he sent the Prophet ﷺ back to Mecca with some of his men. The Prophet ﷺ told us that he witnessed